is Liquid Kill. Tell us about Liquid Kill.
Liquid Kill in the super short is a horror sci-fi book that you can classify also as a cyberpunk in the way that it's stylized and sort of in the subcultures of sci-fi as they come. The plot revolves around essentially what can be referred to as assassins or like a small legion uh, of sort of their own private entity. When it comes to assassins or like militias that people think of,
Hmm.
that like in this story, they're not associated with any government or anything like that, or
Right.
trying to assassinate world leaders.
What's going by his website style, the man, the voice, the fragrance. Here with a gentleman that, well, I came across him a little while ago because he actually shouted me out on this podcast. I was very grateful for that. With my interview, I think it was Holy Chaos, I think was the name of the book, with Carissa Grant and company. And it is none other than Lord Max Hoven. Max, how you doing today, man?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. What came that about to where you interviewed Carissa Grant?
I actually there was some sort of like podcast guest website or something that came across my email, and I just signed up, and they sent me like Google Doc with people who said, "Hey, I'd be interested," because I put down like a list of stuff that I was interested in for my podcast, and she was one of the people that was on there. So I emailed her, we set it up, and the rest is history.
Okay, yeah, interesting. Because I found out about you through her because she was like, I have a long list of people that do interviews with comic creators or
Hmm.
genre focused stuff. And yours was one of the more interesting because it's not centrally comic focused or horror
Right.
focused. You're more on gentlemanness or like
Yes.
your brand is way different from the norm of the community I'm usually a part of. And I like to branch out a lot. So that's also why I reached out to you specifically and shouted you out on my channel as uh, something that other people can be looking into.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, you have a long list of just credits from film producing as far as comic writing. And one of the books that you put out, which is now you have a trade paperback, is Liquid Kill. Tell us about Liquid Kill.
Liquid Kill in the super short is a horror sci-fi book that you can classify also as a cyberpunk in the way that it's stylized and sort of in the subcultures of sci-fi as they come. The plot revolves around essentially what can be referred to as assassins or like a small legion uh, of sort of their own private entity. When it comes to assassins or like militias that people think of,
Hmm.
that like in this story, they're not associated with any government or anything like that, or
Right.
trying to assassinate world leaders. They are just you're sort of thrown into a story of you're just following these female fighters as they're trying to rescue their leader of their little team, and you don't know why they're there. You just know that they're searching for this person, and that this person, you as throughout the story finds out that it's like their surrogate father,
Hmm.
and why that person was kidnapped and who the people is that kidnapped him is the mystery of the story. But the
Okay.
sort of how this one differs from sort of your general cyberpunk conspiracies is this is a very action heavy story that's a it dives into elements that are kind of similar to Resident Evil or The Raid, the action film. Also, there's elements of Eyes Wide Shut as you're dealing with kind of rich
Hmm.
elites and these mysterious parties. Um, and there's also elements of true creature horror because eventually you find out that they are facing what can be referred to as sort of monsters.
Okay. So you cited a lot of inspiration, but where did the idea from Liquid Kill come from for you?
So there's there's kind of like two primary things. I combined. I don't think I've told anybody this, but I'll tell you. I haven't told anyone this one. So I originally wrote this story that became Liquid Kill. It was my own. I wrote a spec script for what was going to be the origin story to the Sub Zero and Scorpion characters from Mortal Kombat
Oh
a
wow.
long time ago. And it was this epic. And in my mind, it was one of those where you didn't know until the end of the movie that that's what it was. It'd be as if I don't think anyone can get away with this anymore. They used to release films that were truly mysterious. And, I think there's some that are similar, like Brightburn, or stories
Hmm.
that they're marketed as horror. And then you find out, like, oh, this character actually is connected to another IP that is not known for that
Kind of
genre.
like Switch when
Ye-
Switch came out.
Uh, I'm not sure if I know Switch, but
Am I
uh,
getting the M Night Shyamalan movie with
yeah,
McAvoy?
was it called Switch? It was called a Split.
Split.
Yeah,
That's what it was. Yeah,
exactly.
Split. Yeah.
It would be like that, to where you think you're going in to watch some movie that's just called whatever it is, and then the people that watch it, when you end, you finally realize, like, oh, the person that you've been watching, or at least like a main character in the story, like that is who becomes something totally unrelated. And
Right.
like that's how I wrote it, and in the process of doing that, the story changed a lot after that. But that was what originally started as, is I was just I had this idea in my head of how something would happen. Simultaneously, as I was writing like that story, I also used to work, and in my day job, I've been working in hotels and uh, resorts, ski resorts, and I've had I don't know if you call it, uh, not liberty, or just the opportunity, I guess, to where I worked at very, what I call, elitist hotels, even
Hmm.
though they're just normal hotels, but they often are rented out by very rich and powerful people. The same kind of hotels, when you hear about them booking a whole place, like for the Bilderberg group, and they
Hmm.
rent out a whole hotel and they stay for a whole day and nobody's allowed in.
Right.
I've worked at hotels that are similar to that, to where whole wings or the whole hotel itself will be rented out entirely for a day for a mysterious group of wealthy people who we
Right.
know of. Um, and they're all people that anyone that looks into or is into tycoons of any industry are. Um, but in that process, you hear all kinds of rumors, because if you are someone that has worked in the service industry, that's worked for any very rich celebrity that has private planes, and people get hurt and people poop on carpets, and all the workers, the service workers, share those stories.
Right.
Or if you work for politicians that, you know, they go to these balls and stuff, or the people that serve the food, and that, or even people that work on movie sets, have these stories. Well, I had these stories with rich people, and some were my own and some were from other people. You hear wild rumors, like so and so injects other people's blood, into their body, and it's young people's blood. uh so and so, these people rent out a whole wing, and they all dressed up as animals, which now is called furries.
Right.
It's now a known thing. But back in the day, that was like, not everybody, not just normal people did that kind of stuff. It was sort of elite groups. And if you even watch the movie The Shining back in the 70s or whenever that came
Right.
out, there's a scene where there's a guy dressed as a bear.
Right.
That's like, yeah, like that is based off of something that probably happened. And we would hear stories about that. Like so and so is dressed as an animal, or just all kinds of stories that you can imagine. It's the same stuff you watch on people throwing stuff out of windows. I exaggerate a bunch of that stuff, and I kind of was just like, what if it was like a hotel like this? Because so the hotel I worked at, one of the main ones I worked at, it was only open for 6 months out of the year. And during the wintertime, much like the movie The Shining, it just gets snowed out and no one can go in or out. Um, and I just imagine, like, what if, like, that time period when the hotel is closed, everything is like underground, and there's sort of like a Resident Evil status base underneath there, where weird
Hmm.
stuff's going on, experiments, rituals, whatever you want to imagine. It's military bases. Um, and then during the season, the on season, it's just a normal hotel, but they get rented out. And I sort of then started to develop this story to where it seems normal to most people, but it's got a whole underbelly. And much like my own experience in hotels, where like when you work over and over again, and especially when you work for really rich and powerful people
Yes.
in this industry, you get kind of people get weird. You get this moment where you're just like, I probably shouldn't be doing this. Like, do I really want to be a slave to the elites my whole life? Or like, is
Right.
that what I've settled for? Or like, and especially if you're involved in weird stuff that they've done, because that's what happens is you might witness the brother hit the wife, and you might witness the shenanigans and like the all the adultery that happens amongst rich people, or
Right.
whatever. And like the
Right.
service people that see stuff can sometimes be involved. The whole show Succession has like a section like that where like there's a big party that they all go to, and like the rich people are partying with them, and they actually accidentally like kill one of them, and now they have to deal with that, and like that kind of stuff happens in real life.
Right.
And and so you get those emotional interactions to where it's like, I can make a lot of money doing this stuff, but I feel like it's like I'm guilty of something by being associated with something is just kind of known evil. Like even though it's not like really that bad, it's like they're
Hmm.
just rich people, but there's an undertone that is always like unknown. That
Right.
is sort of, you get this weird feeling about it, and I exaggerated that and just added on top of it of like all that's real, all of it's extreme, and we set it in the future. Like that's the location we're at. And then I developed that Mortal Kombat story in that location.
Okay.
That's a
Wow.
really long-winded way of telling it, but it's more fun because I mean I can just tell you the synopsis, but
Mhm.
that's sort of the writing. And my partner Aaron Crow, we then like sat down and really developed this into a really ongoing comic series with heroes and everything. Uh, and then we partnered with another artist that we worked with in the past with Gabriel Umazark, who did our first graphic novel, It Eats What Feeds It. And he was all about a cyberpunk story. So it like worked out perfectly to where our next book was going to be this more long, crazy, ongoing cyberpunk story. And and then everything that we thought was over the top, he was like, let's go further, let's make it even crazier. Because I don't know, it's to me, I try to write logically. Like
Right.
if this is A, this is B, and there's only one element of magic, or and you try to explain that. And it's really hard to go, at least for myself and my writing partner, to go too extreme. Like once you go into super fantasy elements, you have to think of the whole science of it first, or at least we would like to. So
Right.
when it came to the more exaggerated elements, we were nervous to really expand too far beyond something we didn't have solidified of how that might work in this universe when it comes to the more sci-fi and fantasy elements. Because this story has both sci-fi science to it
Hmm.
and ritual magic in a sense to it. And we also didn't like how we, you can't just say, "Oh, I have a spell for floating and I also have a spell for whatever." In
Right.
our magic world, it's the same way people view magic today, to where it's more like you're not witnessing people flying in the air. You're just witnessing someone that said they put a curse on a family, and then
Hmm.
crazy stuff starts happening internally. Like it's as if something in either like the spirit world is affecting physical bodies, or just sort of unseen elements that are affecting the way people act. You're not seeing someone like shoot from a wand and it just melt people or something.
Right.
It's more subtle magic, but on the opposite end, when it comes to the sci-fi, it's very physical. It's like this thing exists to move A to B faster or whatever it is. It's like it has a very functional element that we had to solve. It's not just it's not just it exists for the story. It's like it exists in this universe for a reason, and we use that to then add to the story, as opposed to the opposite way around, to where I want to use some kind of new invention to explain how we got person A into this scenario.
Right.
So it um Point being, Gabriel allowed us to break some of those barriers to where we were afraid to go too extreme in the sense of any one element. He was like, how about, and a lot of that is just the scale of things. Like if somebody is a giant or just like ugly or something like that, well, he'll make them 10 feet tall, something that might not normally exist in our world. But in this future
Right.
where people can sort of be enhanced in both biologically through science and through other elements, well, then it makes sense that people might be super big or super small or like have
Mm,
abnormal anatomy, along with the architecture of the buildings and like the in the world that we're actually in, which is interesting in the story because we set it to where it's just like real life, to where this place that they're at wants to stay old, at least visibly, in the same sense that historic castles and hotels want to stay looking like they did,
right.
hundreds of years ago. So even though we're in the future, parts of it that look modern or actually really, really old are more of like as if you just the same way time goes in cycles.
Hmm.
It's as if just the new cool architecture is looking a bit more ancient, almost medieval, but also having the technology in place that enables certain things to happen. But even that technology might be old in this world we're living in, to where it might be
Understood.
interesting for us to use Windows 95 computers for whatever reason you might do that. It'd be the same in this world, to where they're using something that's 100 years old just for the heck of it because they want, or because it's like a stylized element of these rich elites, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yes, it
There's a
makes
lot of
total
subtle
sense.
things into it.
Now, this is a trade paperback. So, how many issues are collected in this?
This 6 issues.
Okay. So, are these the first six? Is this an ongoing series? Like, what else is planned for this?
It in the grand scheme, it would be ongoing, but the
Okay.
way comics work, at, at least in the independent realm, and a creator-owned series like ours,
Hmm.
the ability to be ongoing requires two things. It requires your team to be able to move quick enough in order to
Right.
release them month to month, and B, for their an audience to be there big enough to satisfy the demand. So the first 6 issues, we had a great demand. So we had enough people reading it to where we then could extend the series. However, we're not fast enough to then just release it month to month. So we separated it to where we're now just releasing them into chapters, which if the demand continues to where the next chapter, which is already finished and will be, it's set to go into stores either late fall or early next year. The
Okay.
chapter 2 will be the next 4 issues to make like a volume 2 of the same series, which continues the same storyline as this first one. And so, technically, this full super arc of this story would be a grand total of about 15 issues, and it
Okay.
would be 3 different volumes. So, as of now, the first volume is released or about to it hit stores this fall. The second volume, at least like as individual floppy comics, should start early next year.
Okay.
And then that trade will probably come out late next year. And if that demand continues, we will then try to do the following year, the third volume, to complete that arc. And
Hmm.
if we really get a real demand, it will be truly ongoing, and we'll wait a little bit and just try to set up our timeline to where we can just keep releasing month to month.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. Now, if anybody's interested in picking up volume one, where can they find it?
I will pull up the codes, but so if someone is into comics and they go to a regular comic shop, they can go to their local comic shop and they can still pre-order it now.
Okay.
And all they do is they go to their comic shop and they say, "I'm looking for the trade paperback of Liquid Kill." And if they say, "Well, what's the diamond code?" which is like the distribution code,
Hmm.
uh, it is JUN241035. And if they just say Liquid Kill Trade Paperback Volume 1 and give them that code, uh, that's how they can do it through their local comic shop. If
Okay.
someone doesn't regularly go to their comic shop and they just they read the trades and they go to bookstores instead, that it will be releasing at the same time or roughly the same time, distributed through Simon and Schuster, and to pre-order it through the shops, they'll want to go to whatever their main bookstore is, whether that's Barnes and Noble or whatever, and just basically give them the same information, but not that diamond code because it's distributed differently.
All right.
And the easiest way to do it though is just they can just do the one click on Amazon, and I can give you that link. But it's the same thing to where they can look it up in the book section of Amazon or Barnes
Okay.
and Noble and Liquid Kill pre-order. Um, and it's set to release in as of now August 28th, but
Okay.
things do get delayed. It could get pushed to September or something like that. But it anybody that wants it, they can get it almost anywhere. They just right now have to ask for it or click the links that I can give you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. No, ladies and gentlemen, you should have seen that information flash below. If you didn't and you missed it, all the information is going to be in the show notes as well. So, there's no excuse for you not finding the information if you need it. Now, Max, quick before I go, how did your podcast start?
How did what?
Your podcast start?
Oh, that. Yeah. So I uh in the process of writing or trying to write professionally and making comics, I had a pretty abnormal success with my first book, which other creators started reaching out to me about how I did that. Um, and a lot of things that happen in comics that everybody tries to do, which is like, how do you get meetings with uh, film studios? How do you get an agent? How do you become a bestseller? How do you, get big names to be artists on your books and all these kind of things? I was able to go through those motions, and just in the process of people asking me how I did it, um, I started to basically write emails to people and explaining it, and I turned those emails into articles that I basically was like, I'm going to just tell these to people through YouTube rather than trying to just copy and paste sending to the people that are asking me, because it kind of became a lot of people in my world is, if the once a week someone is reaching out to me about stuff, and so I basically wanted to sort of monetize the information I had learned.
Hmm.
um, and that's so I started making YouTube videos, and once I started making YouTube videos, I got a whole new level of demand of people that wanted to come on my channel or wanted me to come on their channel, and it turned into no longer just me like making videos of like how to find a publisher. It actually became like me having a conversation with people, and people still listen to it. So I just continue that, and I continue that to this day. It's under the Indie Comic Empire YouTube channel, and I also simultaneously have been posting it onto Spotify as well. Do you use any of those ones like for
I
your podcast?
Yeah, I use Spotify. I have actually my last two episodes haven't gone up on Spotify yet because since I switched to video first, I was doing like audio, then converting it to video. Since I'm doing video first, they'll switch over from Anchor to fully into Spotify. I just haven't converted to audio yet because it was being wonky in my video.
Oh yeah,
That's my laziness. It's literally like it's an app that I have. I could have just click, but as I talked to you before, it's been busy.
yeah, yeah.
So,
No, I totally get it. I'm in the same boat to where it's a hassle to convert to YouTube to then spot because I don't have like the RSS feed, and
mhm.
so yeah, I still do it, but it's just not at the same time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I totally understand. Well, Max, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. All you guys, you should see all the links below and the links to the podcast also should have been flashed. Max, where can everybody find you though?
The easiest place to find me and all my links to everything is hovencrow.com. That's www.hoven, like my last name, Hoven, and CROW, which is my writing partner, also the same thing as the animal, the bird, hovencrow.com. And that's our company, Hoven Crow Entertainment. And then all of the links to my social media is at Lord Max Hoven. That's my writer personality, so to speak. And
Mhm.
The Indie Comic Empire's YouTube.
All right. Thank you, Max. Appreciate it. You
Thanks a
guys
lot,
take
man.
care. Thank you. We have more for you later, but check Max out. Catch you later.
Thanks,
Peace.
guys.